Can one person still eat for $10 a week? That is the question that I'm going to address today. About a year ago, I made a video titled How to Eat for $10 a Week. It is still to this day the most popular video on my channel. It is approaching 1 million views. So I thought that I would revisit that video today. I've actually been doing this with a few of my budget videos from the previous year. I did one back in December where I revisited an Aldi $3 dinner video. And I also revisited in January an Aldi versus Walmart video where I compared prices and talked about inflation at the two stores. So I'm going to continue in that series today, and then I'll see if I can give some ideas for that meal plan or maybe a new one whenever we find ourselves in a very tight budget situation. Per the usual with these kinds of videos, I do want to say that these are meant to give some ideas. It's meant to be a jumping off point for whenever we might find ourselves in a very short-term, tight budget situation. These are not meant to be a sustainable way of eating and living over time. So if you or somebody you know are struggling with food insecurity, I hope that you will reach out for help and utilize something like 211 or other organizations in your area that have food pantry or housing and food assistance. My husband and I are very passionate about supporting causes that help address food and housing insecurity. In fact, we tie the income from this channel to organizations primarily that address those issues. So if you are struggling, I want you to know you deserve to be fed. You and your family deserve to be fed. You're not alone. Those entities, those organizations that help are there for that reason, and they're there for you. So if you need this information, I hope there's something here that is helpful or encouraging for you. And if you are somebody who just enjoys this kind of content, if you're just interested, maybe you don't necessarily need to eat on this tight of a budget, but you just like watching these kinds of videos, I want to challenge you to maybe think about doing some budget cooking for a very short amount of time, maybe one budget meal, maybe 2 nights of budget dinners, or maybe a day of budget eating. I have a whole playlist of videos that can give you some ideas. It's in the description box below, all of my budget challenges. And then maybe you can take the difference that you save, the money that you save on food for that challenge, and you can donate it to an entity or an organization in your area that helps people who really, really need it. I have my little list here that I scribbled down with the prices that I paid last year for the items that I purchased for that video, so we're gonna see what everything cost. First thing I did was stroll through the fresh produce, and it can be really difficult to afford fresh produce on a tight budget. That's why a lot of times I use canned or frozen produce. But in that meal plan, I did pick up a couple of potatoes for potato soup and then some bananas to have, I think, with breakfast each morning. And the bananas have only gone up 2 cents per pound. They were 49 cents a pound last year when I made this video, and they were 51 cents a pound today. But the potatoes had gone up 20 cents per pound. They've gone from 68 cents per pound to 88 cents per pound, and I needed to buy them just individually because buying an entire 5 or 10 pound bag of potatoes would have busted my $10 budget for the week. The Great Value mac and cheese has basically reversed. It was 34 cents last year, and now it is 43 cents. So that is a 9 cent price increase, which doesn't seem like a lot when you're thinking about 9 cents, but when you think about percentage wise, you're looking at what, almost, a 25% hike on that product. So there you have it. The tomatoes have only gone up 2 cents, so that's not too bad. That's kind of normal rate of inflation right there. I used this soup mix to season one of the dishes that I made for that challenge last year, and it was 53 cents then, and it is 56 cents now. I picked up these beans last year for 68 cents. They're 72 cents now, so not horrible, but 4 cent increase. Last year I picked up a 5 pound bag of flour for $1.09, and I used it to make bread 2 different ways, to make pancakes, to use egg noodles. So I used it to create things that I used in multiple dishes, and it was $1.09 last year. It is $1.56 today. They don't have the tag up, but I did look it up online. It's $1.56 for a 5 pound bag, which is not a horrible deal for flour, but still, that is a 47 cent increase, like almost a 50% increase from last year. Cream cheese, when you can find it, has gone up. I used cream cheese in the meal plan that I made for that video last year, and it was $1.33 for an 8-ounce block, and it is $1.48 today. And no surprise here, eggs have increased, and I have lived through fluctuations in eggs before. And one of the things that I like about my Super Walmart is that I could purchase eggs by the half dozen, which made these budget challenges a little easier to work. And I used eggs to make egg noodles, I used them to make pancakes, and then we ate a few of them for breakfast a few few days. So they were 56 cents for a half dozen last year when I did this challenge. They are $1.22 today for a half dozen. And by comparison, let's find out what the dozen eggs cost. They're right here. They're $2.13 for a dozen at my Walmart today, the day that I'm filming. And it looks like you can get 18 for $3.15. So, you know, not a huge, you know, savings buying more of them, it seems like. And a half gallon of whole milk last year when I filmed was $1.62, I believe. Yes, $1.62. They're $2.36 today. These little 12-ounce bags of veggies were 80 cents last year. They're 84 cents today, so they've gone up 4 cents a bag. They are the same size. They're 12 ounces. And I picked up the green beans and the corn last year. Yeah, they're still 12-ounce packages. So they've gone up 4 cents per package. Not horrible, but still a ride. So last year when I did this challenge, it cost me $10.24 before tax. And if I was doing that same challenge, the same meal plan, buying the same items today, it would cost me $12.21. That is almost $2 more, almost a 20% increase from what it would have cost me last year. What does this mean? Is it possible to eat for a week on $10? One person for a week on $10? I don't know. Let's think about that. One thing I have often said whenever I'm putting together budget meal challenges, especially challenges that span like multiple meals, multiple days, is that variety is not always a luxury we can afford when we're on a super tight budget, meaning that we often have to make large quantities of a few meals and eat them over and over again. And I always prided myself on trying to keep some variety in the meal plan, you know, having more than one starch or more than one protein or more than one veggie that I could use across multiple meals. And that might not be possible anymore. I think it might be where we would have to just choose one starch and utilize that multiple ways, or a big package of the same vegetables or a big can of the same vegetables and use that across multiple meals instead of getting to have that variety. Pasta aisle is still looking a little bit sparse at my Walmart. It's so hit or miss. Sometimes it's stocked and sometimes not. But as an example to what I was saying, this 3-pound box of elbow noodles is $1.87. 3 pounds of elbow noodles. So if you were eating, you know, a 2-ounce serving, it's 24 servings. But if you made this be 3-ounce servings, because let's face it, what adult is eating only 2 ounces of pasta, you would still end up with 16 3-ounce servings, right, of pasta. Hold on. Yes, my mathing is correct. You would end up with 16 3-ounce servings, so that's a little larger serving, which could be lunch and dinner. So for an entire week, because you have 16 servings, 8 lunches, 8 dinners, 7 lunches, 7 dinners, with a little bit left over. And I often make pasta the choice for my starch with the extreme budget meals because pasta has more protein than potatoes or rice. And potatoes and rice have a little protein per serving, and other starches do as well. But a serving, 1 2-ounce serving of pasta usually has 7 or 8 grams of protein. So whenever you're thinking about trying to get some of that macronutrient into a tight budget, especially when you may not be able to utilize meat, pasta is something that I usually go to. The other thing I think that would have to happen, even though I was already doing this in a lot of my budget cooking videos, is a little bit more cooking from scratch. I bought canned beans ready-made for that original video, but I could get more bang for my buck if I bought the beans dry and cooked them myself. A pound of black beans is $1.48. Has anybody ever heard of cranberry beans? I've never heard of those before. I don't know what those are. You have navy beans for $1.14, chickpeas for $1.18 a pound, and then over here I can actually still get a pound of just plain old pinto beans for $1. And then if you wanted to up it to 2 pounds, you can get $1.84, and a 4-pound bag is $3.66. So obviously you're saving a little bit more money the more that you buy. But even on a tight budget, $1 for a bag of beans, in my experience, 1 pound when I cook these up will make the equivalent of about 4 cans of beans. The other thing that I think would have to happen for me to be able to work with a $10 budget for a week of meals, again, I'd have to keep the meals pretty simple because I wouldn't be able to purchase as many items, which means that I might have to settle for just some really, really simple meals. You know, there's a reason why spaghetti, pasta marinara, you know, really easy, inexpensive meal that is palatable to most people. There's a reason why that pops up in budget meal plans all the time, and I think it would have to be meals like that, eaten multiple times across the week, and just, you know, keeping things really, really simple, but still palatable. you know, I mean, we're not saving money if we are buying food that we won't actually eat. So it has to be stuff that we still like to eat and that we still feel like it satisfies us and fills us up. Let me give you some ideas for some inexpensive meals here, and also maybe share a few ideas that I've already shared in the past. You guys know, if you watch my channel, that I will often say if you're working with a limited amount of stock in your kitchen, like a limited amount of seasonings and spices, sometimes starting with something that is already seasoned is really, really helpful. And Walmart does carry a dupe of the hamburger helper. And I know it says that this serves 5, in my opinion, not really. But if I was making this budget style, I would probably, first of all, use water instead of milk. And I would add in maybe a can of tomatoes, some beans, maybe a handful of extra pasta. If I wanted that creaminess and that richness of the dairy, even though I'm not using milk, I might pick up 1 small carton of plain Greek yogurt and stir that in as well, and just leave the beef out. You could also use some cooked lentils in place, or maybe some chickpeas, and this would be a really inexpensive dinner that you could stretch a lot of ways. My aunt had a fantastic recipe for feeding a crowd. She called it Mastaccioli, and it started with a can of prepared chili. I have made it before on my channel, so I will type out that recipe and leave it linked in the description box. It's a really inexpensive meal that feeds a crowd, and I will leave that video linked in the description box too, where I made my aunt's recipe and fed about 15 people. Of course, that was a year and a half ago, so it would probably be $12 or $13 now, but still not bad for feeding that many people. I made a video last month where I fed my family for an entire day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for about $10 and some change using stuff from Walmart. I'll leave that link in the description box, but one really awesome recipe that came out of that was this cheater tomato soup, where you use just a can of prepared tomato sauce and you add some milk or cream to it. And then I just served that with some really easy grilled cheese sandwiches. I have also seen that kind of cheater tomato soup recipe with the jar spaghetti sauce and the milk or the cream. I used cream and it was delicious. I've seen that made using a can of evaporated milk, not sweetened condensed milk, 2 different things, but I've seen it used for that as well. And you could also maybe throw in a handful of pasta and a little extra water, and you could have almost like a homemade SpaghettiOs style, really inexpensive meal that would probably fill the belly and probably be pretty kid friendly too. This is just a small sampling of some of the budget cooking videos that I've done in previous years. They're all in a playlist in the description box, so feel free to peruse that and see if there is something that might be what you are looking for. But I wanted to mention a few of the recipes I've come across in those challenges that have been among my favorites, like this pasta dish that I made using just half a pound of sausage and then some pantry staples like pasta and tomatoes and cream. And then this super easy pasta Parmesan soup. It only has a handful of ingredients, and it was really filling in one of those just really simple comfort food meals that can fill the belly on a cold winter day. You can find both of those recipes in this video right here. I will leave it linked in the description box, and it's also in that playlist. And this fideo con carne y papas was an easy dish using pantry staples and only half a pound of ground beef. It was very filling, flavorful, and delicious. I will leave the recipe linked in the description box, and you can also find it in this video right here. And don't worry if you are looking for some recipes that do not utilize pasta. I do have plenty of recipes in my budget videos that use rice or potatoes or some other form of starch. So the question that I set out to answer today was, what would it cost for me to make the meal plan of my most popular video if I was making that meal plan today? And we answered that question. It would cost me about 20% more than it did about a year ago. And then another question that I wanted to ask and answer is the $10 meal plan for a week for one person even still possible? I think in a pinch, I could probably come up with a meal plan that would feed one person for 7 days, at least in my area, shopping at my Walmart, but it would be very simple. It would be very basic, very little variety. I would have to work pretty hard to make that budget work. Throughout the past several months, I have tried to remain a calm, non-anxious presence. I think it is very important, not to panic so that we can think straight and come up with some solutions to our problems. And honestly, while there might still be some ways we can change up how we're cooking and how we're shopping in order to make our current grocery budget, the one we've been utilizing for the past few years, still work for us, I think the time is approaching when we are going to have to address the elephant in the room, which is, how are we going to increase our food budget? And one of the ways that we can do that is by increasing our household income, obviously, trying to find a way to make a little extra money so that we can put more funds towards different line items in our budget, including groceries. Or maybe there is another area in our budget where we can cut back and then we can redirect those funds to purchasing food or gas gas or paying utilities or other things that are on the rise. But I do think it would be wise or prudent to think about that question now and figure out how we are going to budget more money in those categories that are on the rise, or how we are going to earn a little bit of extra household income so that we can increase our budget across the board in various categories. I do hope that I gave you something to think about, some ideas, some inspiration, something interesting. I will leave my playlist of extreme budget meal challenges in the description box, and I will actually even leave links to some of the videos that I mentioned specifically with some of my budget meal plans and some of the meals that I mentioned. Hopefully there's something that's helpful for you there. Even if they aren't the exact same price as the time that I made them, they might still be pretty thrifty meals, and maybe some of those meals are things that you already have the ingredients for in your pantry. Feel free to leave me a comment and let me know how you are addressing this in your household. Maybe you have a really good idea that somebody who is reading the comments needs to hear. Maybe you have a tip that would help somebody out, as we are all in this boat together.